Can you hear me?
Again.
Oh,
Yeah. Morning.
good morning, beautiful humans.
That's very positive.
What, that you're beautiful humans? Or
Yeah,
morning?
I guess just hearing that, yeah.
Hey, Chris, we did it.
Yes, finally.
How are you?
Yeah, good. I think Zoom works really well, I guess, for everyone as well. You can be wherever you are and just sort of jump on,
Yeah.
you know, for 30 minutes or so. It won't have to take too long to do this. I'm only on the introduction Zoom account, so I think it cuts me off at 40 minutes anyway.
Yep.
So we'll see if we get that far.
Amazing.
But yeah, it's just sort of very casual. Just having you guys on as guests. Just came across you guys through Anna.
Yeah.
And just thought it was really interesting to actually find out more about what Calm Mind Co is, and just sort of seeing, like we work with a lot of small business owners, guys quite high up in companies as well, and just seeing how get Calm Mind Co out there as well through our podcast. And obviously we show up to everyone who comes through as gym clients here as well who follow our podcast. So yeah, just thought I'd get you guys on. So maybe if we can start with tell a little bit about yourself first, and then we'll go into a bit about the story behind Calm Mind and who it's for.
Yeah.
Do you want to start first, Amber?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Firstly, I just want to say I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for wanting to show us and get us on the show. We're super grateful to be here. My background, it could go on forever, but I'll keep a short version. I guess the most important thing to understand is that because of my experience in human behavior and working with trauma as a behavioral therapist, regression therapist, NLP practitioner, and in that realm of working with people in really dark places, and then on the other end of that, of taking people to an optimal level beyond where they already are, achieving great success, what I saw was so much pain and suffering could be prevented in the world, and so much more joy and contribution and empowerment could be taught in a really simple way. And I think that our growth and evolution as human beings, it's on so many different levels and can be really complex and misunderstood. And the whole intention of Calm Mind Co began in wanting to just empower people with the skill to be able to come back to calm their mind, because from that place, that's where the best innovation happens. That's where powerful, empowered decisions happen. That's where we can stay in a place to express it is what we're feeling, so we're not suppressing our emotions, so we don't have trauma trapped up inside of us that then perpetuate toxic behaviors that turn into abuse, in a system level, on an individual level, in a relational level, on a collective level, on a government level. So it was prevention as much as it was a solution, because if we can understand how to become calm in our mind and present and connected in our body using our breath, using mindfulness, using understanding cognitive techniques of our own mind and our thinking and how that all interconnects, and become more inherently inspired and intuitive beings, we will have a world that evolves towards that rather than always trying to treat symptoms. So it was about empowerment. That's my love for it. That's my intention of it. And my background started in radiation therapy. I was a radiation therapist, and then personal training. And so I got to see a lot of two different sides of working with what felt like wanting to get something, like achieve a certain body weight, but also how people were driven from pain and a lack of worth, and then the fight for someone's life, and what that brought up and showed within people, and the strength and courage we have at human beings, which was such a contrast and a paradox to work with in between, which really inspired me to empower people on a deeper level, on a mental and emotional level. So that's why we exist.
My background is a little bit different to Amber's. I have a background in high performance sport. I was an athlete at the Australian Institute of Sport for a few years, and then became a full-time performance therapist, working mostly with Paralympic teams and traveling the world with Paralympic teams, but also working within the top level football codes. And then 7 years later, ended up back at the Australian Institute of Sport as a full-time coach and working my way up as a high performance coach, strength and conditioning, and sprints and jumps coach in high performance sport. So safe to say that my addiction in life has been around human performance, and because sport is very much performance driven, performance outcome, and always loved sport. And then 5 years ago now, I actually experienced an emotional journey with some massive adversity and trauma in our family, and that took me to some deep, dark, emotional places that I had never experienced before. And from that space and doing the work with professionals and feeling what it's like to be that low, and then to do the work and see the progression and to work through that, and everything that I learned through those processes around human behavior and understanding emotions and acceptance and commitment therapy and doing the cognitive behavioral therapy, I got through a lot of those processes and started to really become a lot more interested in human behavior, still loving the human performance side, but really, really intrigued around the human behavioral elements. And over the last few years, when I decided to give up my full-time job in high performance sports, I was high performance coach with Athletics Australia, traveling the world with Paralympic athletes, and I had created some Paralympic champions and world record holders, and decided to finish my job at the top of my game, so to say, in that regard, because I felt this strong sense of purpose and drive within me to want to explore working more around the human behavioral space. And because I started to shift my addiction of human performance into an addiction around human behavior. So now working a lot more with human beings to still bring the performance element and understanding how to bridge the gap and to make the foundations of our life and those 1% improvements add up to the big changes in our life, but looking at it more from not just a do this and you'll get this result like it is in sport, like a linear type approach, but understanding things more from a dynamic human behavioral, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual approach now. So needless to say that when Amber and I were introduced to each other a couple of years ago, and we did a podcast together at that stage, I interviewed her on my podcast, and then learning how each other work, when we had the opportunity to work together, it just worked so well, and it was a no-brainer, because everything that Amber has to offer around human behavior was a lot of what I knew could exist, but I didn't know how I could bring that into people's lives, into organizations, into programs and things like that. So I think that's why we work so well with Calm Mind Co, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it, is because there's so much energy and enthusiasm and knowledge and experience and fun and joy is what we talk about too, that we bring to it to help create Calm Mind Co and everything that exists within it.
That's awesome. So I guess who is your sort of ideal client, and what, when they come to you, what's going on in their life, and what are they trying to, through meeting you guys, like what's the process, like what's happening there?
There's two different aspects, or two different people really that we work with.
Yeah.
One is someone who is in a leadership position that's quite influential within either their own business or someone else's business. And what they want to do is unite their team, not by telling them what to do and giving them rules and just giving them KPIs and bonuses, but really giving a shit about what matters to them in their life, getting them connected to that so that they're inspired humans within themselves. And then connecting the bigger vision of the company or the organization or the business they work with on a purpose and a values level, and bringing those together so that you have inspired people who are empowered within their own mental, emotional well-being and are sovereign beings in that. And they know how to do that. And they like their life. You know, they're not coming to work for another dollar. They're like, this is part of what I live for, because they're inspired within their own goals, and then connecting that inspiration to the outcomes and the purpose of the business. So it all kind of comes together. So you're looking at a self to self relationship with the team, and then a self to other relationship with the team, and the self to the greater vision of the organization. So what we teach are fundamentals of how to be optimal in your mental, emotional, and physical well-being. And it's done in a way in which we're looking at where you're at. And it's not just like, cool, let's just get the best out of life and feel a bit better. Like, everyone has well-being programs. Everyone can teach mindfulness. And you know, there's like these tiny changes, and it tends to like maybe treat a problem for a little bit, but it's generally a symptom. Whereas we want to get to the root cause, which is mostly that people are working because they feel that they are stuck in a circumstance or that's going to get them money. And most businesses or leaders think, right, if I get them inspired about what we want to do and make them realize how good what we want to do is, then they'll want to get there. But it's no, people have their own journey in their own life. So it's about taking care of that, your people, and making sure they're inspired about who they are and what they live for, and then showing and being able to connect that person with the vision. So it's an interdependence for a bigger vision. So that's like with that one person who goes, yep, that's what I want for my team, and that's how I want to work with them. And so we work with them as a collective and an individual. And the other person is someone who wants empowerment in order to be able to function at a high level without sacrificing their anything and their well-being. So we're creating an app at the moment that teaches people the most fundamental skill to be able to calm your mind, connect to your body, and clear that to come from that place of clarity. And that is available to everyone, because I believe every single human being should know that they can do that themselves.
Okay. And is this like in person, or is this online, or a bit of both?
Well, at the moment, it has to be online.
Okay.
It's remote because of the laws of what's going on right now in 2020 with COVID. Generally, we do it in person though, and it can be both depending on whether or not they're in Australia, like in a mining town, whatever it is. So it's a combination that serves the organization or the person. Obviously, the app's online.
Yeah. And is it like an ongoing thing where is it maybe like a initial assessment, some sort of onboard, like fast track, quick wins, and then maybe a weekly check-in, monthly check-in? How does the relationship work with the clients that you're working with?
So if it's the one where we work with the organization and their team, we have to onboard them. And the most important part is to get clarity on where they're at and what they want, where they're going. That's the very first thing that we do. Clarity is everything for us, both within the result that we get through the things that we teach, but within the person. And then we have a look at and give an assessment back to the organization of where we can see the gaps, where maybe they didn't see them, based on the assessment that we do and how they interact with the program. We usually work with over 12 weeks to 6 months. So to roll the program out, to set some, again, like, first, the focus is on like the person, the individual themselves, like supporting them. Because once we have that right, that's a strong foundation to work on everything else. If you try and go the other way, which most people do, it's like, cool, go fix this problem, make them happy, inspire them for a bit, falls apart, waste of money and time. Support the individual first, then support the individuals at interacting with each other, then support the individuals with that vision and that connection with the connection of the organization. And then we roll out a plan. You know, sometimes organizations want to take it further than that. They might want to do a retreat with us with a certain management team. So, but that's our baseline. And the online program Thrive that we roll out into this team, which is all online, it also involves monthly coaching calls that we do online, that anyone in part of the program, no matter what organization they're a part of, whether it's a school or an individual that's joined, they can have these coaching calls. And we also run 28-day challenges within Thrive that supports people to get into their own individual habit with what we teach within it. So it's really incentivized to jump in and empower themselves first, but then we use all of the skills within that program to support the integration of the values and change of the culture within the organization as well.
One of the big things that we teach too is around adaptability intelligence. So we look into the different forms of intelligence, emotional intelligence and the hard intelligence, and adaptability intelligence is a big part of it. So in answer to your question, Chris, is that we have this kind of structure that's available, but we also understand the need and the skill to be able to be adaptable and evolve. And especially when you look at the climate that we live in at the moment, with the way that we as individuals and as organizations need to be able to adapt and evolve through these challenging times and any challenges beyond.
Definitely. Like I actually, through like I'm running the gym, Electric Fitness, and I do business coaching. It is in the gym space, but the first thing that our business coach tells us is to get our head right, the mindset. And one thing he points to is like the miracle morning. I think a guy, forget his name, but it's just about in the morning getting your head right for the day. And it's no point doing all these things if your head is just not in the right space.
Yep.
And as you get a little bit older, or if you're at that top level, there's a lot of, you pull from a lot of different directions.
Yep.
And then sometimes feel a bit lost. Yeah.
100%. And that's why I thrive. Often the most simple practices in our life are the most underestimated, and the ones that are overlooked, and the ones that will change our life. So the people that we've worked with really high up in business, they're usually already really successful. They're usually working really hard. They usually have great work ethic, and they have the same conditioning that I had for such a long time and still get caught up into, is if I'm not grinding and if I'm not really pushing really hard, then it's not worth it, or it's not of value. But taking things to the next level means that we have to reverse it, that we have to increase our own internal energy and our own mental clarity, and then our capacity to be able to innovate. And it's like we create more time because we create more space and energy within ourselves, and then we can get more done on a way in which that expands the business. And wealth is always a result of wealth, and expansion is always a result of taking the time to support what's going on in your mind and emotions first. And it's the same reaction is always like, oh, I'm not really good at this, I've never really tried it. And then once they do it, they're like, holy shit, like I had no idea that was the answer, I had it all wrong. It's always the same paradigm shift.
Okay. And what would be like, say, like a really good what's a success story, or what's success for most of the clients? Like, what is it that they feel that has got them over that mental block? Or like, what are you seeing, what change are you seeing from the guys that you're working with? Like, or even what's success for you as being, your teachings to these guys? Like, what are you looking for? What sort of, when's that switch? Like, when do you feel, these guys are now, they're starting to turn the corner?
I'll answer for me, and then I know Robbo's will be different. So for me, it's when that person is in a place that we're working with, like the person at the top has implemented the practices that we've done, and they're like, wow, like I feel alive, I feel inspired, I feel connected to what I do, I feel invigorated, and I want my team to get this. And then you find that they're like on board because they feel amazing, and there's this shift in their consciousness that goes, my whole team deserves this. And if I feel like this and I'm growing and my business is growing just with me shifting, imagine if we all became a unit of this. And that's when you see it just go, because once the leader's behind it and they pull their full weight behind that and they put their full belief behind it because they've experienced it, it's just like there's massive flow-on effect. Before that, it's about like really building that micro change and getting them to relax into trusting themselves, to have that shift to just unwind and slow down first in order to speed up. It's like slow motion in order to expand and grow. So that success point for me is when they're like fully backing the support of their team, feeling this in their own life, and it's no longer about their business getting better. It's going like, I want my whole team to feel like this because I know that the impact we will have as a business, and then they even want to introduce it into part of their business. So as an example, one of our clients is a chiropractor. First, he did it with himself, massive change, then trained his team, massive change and growth. Now he's implementing some of the practices into his patients. So for me, it's that ripple effect that I'm like, that is success to us, when that it goes and goes and goes.
I will back all of that and add that for me also, I love it when the individual then takes the learnings into the personal life, and you hear comments of, wow, it's helped my relationships and I'm able to enjoy my hobbies more, or my purpose is much clearer and I'm able to contribute to community more based on all of the changes that have been made. We do some things around flow and focus drills because they're fundamental in all of our lives. And when we can do some drills where we're creating chaos, and we can trigger things like frustration and reacting, and then we can pick up on that and then teach them some of the skills to come back to that calm state and that clarity state, and then teach them how to respond as opposed to react. And then highlighting, well, where else was that frustration or that reactiveness showing up in your life? So how can you use these skills in your personal life? And you think about that in terms of relationships, it can significantly change and empower relationships. So I love it. And that success point is that ripple effect in that way into personal lives, people enjoying life more with their hobbies, and that contribution aspect back into community or charity or however else they're aligned with their purpose.
Do you have any clients that are like, have been successful in the business and then it's starting to fail, and that's the reason they're coming to you? Or it's more they're successful and there's like something else happening in their life, or is it relationships failing, or they don't feel like they're feeling they're getting more stressed, or it's
all of that. So I think people they have a different threshold for what's important, and based on their values will be based on what makes them that tipping point to go this. So maybe someone values money more, or maybe they have find themselves wandering in relationship or gone into substance abuse. Like the amount of people who work at a high level who have very much like what might seem like a covert addiction to work. There's some pretty personal stuff that
fix their problems, or if they keep working harder.
Yeah, they burn out. They're like, their mindset is generally, to make this more successful and to fix my problems, I have to push harder and work harder and sacrifice things.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point of going like, this is not working. I've sacrificed so much, or I have lost so much, or someone has told them, hey, this way. And they're like, well, I don't know how to do that. And then they've come. So it's whatever people's pain gets to the point where they feel like they have lost enough and what they've done is not working, and they're not sure what else to do. And they're like, okay, cool. I'll hand over that power because I've always been in control and I've been really good at this. And now I can't deny this anymore.
Yeah.
I think in relation to that too, Chris, that we find that the organizations, some of them are coming to us in a proactive approach, which is amazing. And we love working with that. We both do a lot of work with individuals, and it's a lot of the time with the individual work where we find it's that reverse effect where they've got to that tipping point of burnout or relationship breakdown or just not knowing what to do next. And that's what's drawing them to find solutions in their mind.
And how are guys actually, finding out that you are a solution to their needs? Like people might have these feelings and like, I'm looking for something. How do they come across Calm Mind Co? Like, how are you getting the clients? Is it through referrals or people searching at particular subjects that you're sort of getting, in front of, that they can, know that you guys are available?
For most of our existence, we've been referral based, and we're at the point now where we're expanding out of that. Hence, we're doing the rebrand and we're relaunching our website. So what we'll be doing is, as Robbo said, usually it's been an inspired individual that's gone, hey, I want to bring this to what I'm doing. So our focus generally is not like trying to find a business or get in there or change it, because that makes it really hard when we're trying to convince them, hey, you've got to do this, it sucks, and we want to help you. We just focus on the individuals who then have that experience because they fully back bringing it to whatever their organization they are a part of or who they're with. And so that's why we focus, and we'll be focusing on the Thrive program, which is the 28-day challenges. And those people who have experienced change will be the leaders, because what we are not is people who want to come into a business and be the person who's telling everyone they should do this. Yeah. It's like we're the person who will support the person supporting their team, because it comes from that genuine place of wanting other people to experience, without sounding airy-fairy, a really amazing life.
Awesome. That's good. I think, yeah, we can sort of wrap it up there. So I'd like to end the podcast just with a few like more personal questions to yourself. And then, I'll just ask the question, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's just, whatever sort of comes to mind. So I'll start with you, Amber. If you could interview one person, who would it be and why?
Be my mum. She died 4 years ago, and I would just love to learn about, I would love to ask her all of the questions that I never got to ask her when she was alive, because we didn't have a strong relationship. And I feel like I'm in such a place in my world right now where I would just want to listen to absolutely everything she had to say.
Awesome. And you, Brett?
I think that's beautiful. And to be honest, mine would change if you asked me next week, next month. And at the moment, someone who's strong on my mind is actually John Butler, because he's such an influential person in a very creative and soulfully creative way. And I've heard him speak, and he sees the world in a different paradigm. And I feel like he's got a lot of value to give away from his music. And I would love to just dive deep and explore his mind at the moment. Ask me next week and that could change.
Same. I ditto that.
All right. So next question. What is something in your morning routine that you feel sets you up for success at the start of your day? Like something that you just know that you need to do daily, but it's going to set you up for success.
Do you want to go first, Robbo?
Always. Ladies first.
Okay. Every single day I wake up, and part of my very first thoughts are gratitude before I'm even open my eyes. Generally, I start with the gratitude of my bed. The practice of being grateful for the most simple things lifts my energy immediately. And then I will do either at least a 10-minute breath work or a 20-minute meditation. And after that, visualize what I'm creating at that time. So those 3 things every single day. And I also drink warm apple cider vinegar, lemon water, do all the things. My morning routine is key.
Awesome. Bro?
Yeah, thanks, Amber. That was more than one. No, that's great. I think the thing about morning routines is that I used to be very, very structured with my morning routines and would love it and spend a lot of time on it. And then bang, I had a baby, and the time aspect just gets thrown out the window. So the things that I come back to is what can I fit in the reality of that I know have the biggest bang for their buck. And gratitude is actually the number one. And I'll give you an example. This morning, I had a terrible night's sleep last night, which is rare for me. I just woke up lots and just a terrible night's sleep. So when my alarm went off early to get up and coach, my first thought was, oh God, how am I going to get through the day? I'm so tired. I haven't had, and then I caught myself with those thoughts, and I just switched straight away. And I just looked over and I said, dear, I'm so grateful for my wife. I'm so grateful for having a roof over my head. And as I'm getting up and going to the toilet and everything, I just keep repeating gratitude and actually feeling into that. So straight away, that tool shifted me out of that negative spiral and that trajectory that I was going to send myself on into triggering different emotional states, different mental patterns, different thought processes that actually made me feel better. It doesn't reverse how my sleep was, but it actually makes me feel better, and it actually makes me make different decisions and see the world a little bit differently from that lens, from that gratitude. So it's definitely my number one. I actually say that I'm addicted to gratitude as well.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I like that. I think sometimes maybe if you're your partner or is down, you can pick them up. But if you can pick yourself up with that gratitude stuff, it's just empowering yourself to be strong, and then you can be strong for others around you. And then I think it's really good. Third question. What is something that you used to believe in but have now recently changed your mind? So something that could maybe 6 months ago, 6 years ago, that you used to strongly believe in, but in more recent times you've changed your mind on that.
I don't know if it was 6 months ago, it would have been years ago, but I was reflecting on it this morning. Is that okay if I use this example?
Sure, yeah.
So probably in my earlier 20s, there was there was just a coldness in me from, there was a lack of empathy, actually. There's a lack of empathy and compassion for just for people in general, when they were experiencing something really hard, I was like, I wanted to support them to get their grit together in a sense. So what I used to believe is that if you had a problem with someone, that was your problem to sort through, that was your trigger was your problem. And I believe that's a really old consciousness, because I think it's ridiculous to think that we don't have an impact on each other, and that we're all, while we're independent beings, I think in our world more than ever right now, we can say, yep, I am, like, my reality is not determined by my external environment or my internal environment, but I do own that my actions, my thoughts, my energy, my words, they have an impact on others, and taking responsibility for that at a whole different level, rather than just assuming that if someone is triggered that it's their problem. So that's been a really big shift, and it's a very big heart opening, humbling experience to go through, that I kind of worked through in my earlier 20s.
And for you, Brett, something that you used to believe in, but have recently changed your mind about that?
There's absolutely so many different things I could unpack there, because the thing about beliefs is what I've learned over time is that the importance of actually being able to change our beliefs. But I'll give you one example. I used to believe that breathing through your mouth was more efficient than breathing through your nose. I didn't know that I believed that, but what we know about beliefs is that all of our actions are a result of our conscious or our subconscious beliefs. So I love that saying of, if you want to know what you believe, take a look at your life. Your life doesn't lie. So the actions that you take in your life are a result of what you believe, whether that's conscious or subconscious to you. So I used to think, obviously, because my actions were that I would breathe a lot through my mouth, and in performance state and in general life. So therefore, I obviously believed that breathing through my mouth was more efficient than breathing through my nose. What I know now as a breathing coach, and over the last few years doing a lot more research and working with so many people around that, is, in actual fact, breathing through your nose is much more efficient than breathing through your mouth.
Yeah, that's cool. Like, yeah, the breath work is something I've just recently started to dive into, starting to implement in my day as well. Just getting from that, is it the sympathetic to parasympathetic states, and
well, it's so powerful, and that's why it's a big part of what we do at Calm Mind Co. and with our Thrive program. And we ran a workshop on the weekend. Everything we do has components of breath work, because the breath can be used to bring the energy up. It can be used to bring harmony and coherence. It can be used to bring the energy down if we're overwhelmed, and to be able to calm the mind. There's so many different elements of being able to use the breath that it's actually a key part of what we do for the I was going to say the results that it gets, but it's the key. It's the connection between
the foundation to
elements.
Everything.
Yeah. And no one probably starts there. It's like they find out about later. All right. So last question: if there's a particular book or video or film or something on Netflix, some show that you could like to recommend that has impacted your life. So something that's impacted your life in terms of a book you've read, film or biography film, or something that you've watched that's really impacted your life.
Oh my God, I have so many. Brett, give me a second.
Just one.
I'll answer while you think about it, Amber.
Yeah.
So for me, 2 books, and I believe books always come at the right time. One that was fundamental for me was The Happiness Trap by Dr. Russ Harris, and that's all about acceptance and commitment therapy. So that was part of my journey out of those deep, dark emotional states, suffering. I was suffering at that time, and I was still a victim through those times and experiencing a lot of emotional suffering. So that was a really good one. And then another one years down the track was Viktor Frankl's book, A Man's Search for Meaning, when I was weighing up some opportunities and trying to decide and what choices to make. And once reading that book, A Man's Search for Meaning, it created a lot of clarity for me and a connection back to purpose. Mine
would have to be The Celestine Prophecy. It's a book. It's It's a very, very, very old book. I love the way in which that it's written. It's not a self-help book. It's a fictional book, but it teaches some excellent philosophies in life, and that's how I like to learn, through story. Most of us do. So,
Okay.
that book.
Awesome. Well, it's been really good to have you guys on. Got about 4 minutes left on my free Zoom. So, what's the best way guys can find you in terms of like personally and also for Calm Mind, like Instagram tags or URLs? Just want to.
Yep. calmmindco.com and Calm Mind Co on Instagram. I'm Amber_Hawken on Instagram and Amber Hawken on my website. And Robbo?
Yeah, I've just launched my new website, so brettrobbo.com and brettrobbo1 on Instagram and brettrobbo on Facebook. But Calm Mind Co is a really good place to follow for everything that we're combining on that we've spoken about today.
And you guys are launching a new website, you're saying?
Yes. Yep.
And when's the launch date?
It's planned by the end of August. So depending on our developers and our designers, they're doing their thing. So
yeah, perfect. Well, thanks guys. Really, loved having you on and finding out a bit more about what you're doing. It's got me a little bit intrigued, so I might have to dig a little bit deeper myself. I run a couple of businesses as well. And definitely all the things that you've described, I know at times I've felt lost, and it's all to do with that mindset and headspace. So hopefully this, helps a few other people that sort of come across the podcast and sort of can refer your way. So awesome. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate it.
No worries, guys.
Super grateful for you and your time and for everyone listening. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Cheers, Brett. Thank you, Amber.